Let's now look at adding some macros to our project and using them in some of our models. So the first thing we'll do is create a new branch. We'll do git branch m add macros. Git branch just to make sure we're there. Okay. So now we're working within this new branch. We're adding our own changes. Now, what we're going to do, just to give some background, is we're going to look at this score comparison model here. Right now we have movie name. We have a couple things here, but if we look at the data itself, we can see that each of these have the name and we have the date within here, but it's tucked away in the name, but they all have the same format. And in this scenario, we're going to make the assumption that every film has this same format. And I'm sure you can think of examples where everything has similar formats. And what I want to do is separate the name of the film and also create a new column for the year. So how can we do that? Let's come up with some logic to do that. So the way we'll do this, we're going to create a macro, and ultimately we're going to run this macro against this column. So step one, we're going to go to macros because this is where, again, we've said for our project to look for macros. And I'm going to add a new file. And what I'm going to call this is strip film name.sql. I have this already made. I'm going to just copy and paste this in here for sake of time. I'll have this provided. And really what's important here is not necessarily the name of the file when we're talking about macros, but more so the name in here. Usually you have a match, but you could theoretically have multiple macros within one file, depending on how you want to organize it. What happens when dbt runs, it's looking for this macro indicator and then the name. So that's when you call it, that's technically what it's looking for, not this name, unlike a model where it does look for the name of the model. So in this case, we're going to essentially strip out the name of, kind of take out the year here and just leave you with the name. And we'll add one more as well, and we'll call it strip film year.sql. And again, we could have put this in the same one, but we decided not to. Oh, and it looks like I actually did this already. So let's flip this and I'll copy the logic for film name, my mistake. So we have film name, which like I said, is stripping out essentially taking out the year and just leaving us with the name. Year doing the opposite. It's going to get rid of the name and just leave the film. In both of these examples, we're looking for one parameter, one argument, and that is the column name. So we want to pass in the column name and it's going to compile it for us. So how can we use this macro to do this? Let's go back to our model here, the one that we are playing with. I want to use this macro in place of this here. So the way that we would do this is similar to the ref or the source, really any macro, because technically those are macros, is you're going to wrap it in double curly brackets, just like that. And what we'll put in here is the name of the macro. So instead of ref, we're going to do strip film name, parentheses, and then the argument. And in this case, it's the column name. So we need to put this whole thing in here. We have the double quotes in here, but if you didn't have that, you could just leave that out, but we'll keep it for now. And then for movie year, we want to add a new one for movie year. We can do the same thing, but we're calling this movie year. It's taking the same argument, and we'll say as movie year. Save. Now, let's first do a dbt compile to see how this looks. Oh, I need to save this, so we need to save this file here. Let's try that again. There we go. Okay, target compiled. Let's find this one here. And here we can see it replaced it in place of this. That's what's happening when it compiles. This gets compiled as well up here. So you can think of this, it's very similar. It's the same thing. They're both technically macros and they're just compiling. dbt, just could keep driving this home. dbt is going to compile things and send it to your server to run. And that's what's happening here. So I'm going to close this compiled thing. Let's add just the original column as well. And we'll call this movie name with date, just so we have both copies of this. I'll do a dbt run. I'm going to now introduce one more command. And just so we can run a single model, we can do different selectors. And the format for this is dbt run. So run is going to do everything. You can do -s and then the name of your model. So we could say staging Fandango _ score comparison. And what that's going to do now is only run that model. So even though there's all these here, it's just running that one, so we can pick and choose which one we want to do. Now, just on that topic, remember we said refs, it allows you to understand what comes before and what comes after. You can do a plus, and it's going to run everything that's connected all the way through. And you could do plus on the other side at the front, and it would run everything before it, including that model as well. You could also run based on the directory, so you could just pick a directory, all these other things. So remember, you have a lot of options with running, and that's why directories and all this stuff is really important, and using refs, just using it the right way. Okay, so now let's take a look here. Dev, we're in staging. Here's our model. We can see these are here now. Let's see what we got. So it parsed out the name, just the year, and this is exactly what we wanted. So that's the way we can use macros to do some little logic. Again, this is a pretty simple example, but there's a lot of different things you can do. It's an open book. Think of it like a function, and that's how macros work. So I'm not going to show this, but what you can do now is add these changes, commit them to your branch, push it to GitHub, and then merge it to your main branch so that going forward, you now have the main branch, including this change. So in the next video, we'll take a look at project configs and implementing variables as well.